So hi everybody and welcome back to C++ tutorial series for absolute beginners. This is video 226, and in this video I want to talk about the bug which I want to show you with a flowchart, but we will not continue with flowcharts. I think you understand the concept, and it is very important that you try it on your own code and test it on your own to see if this helps you to understand the code a little bit more or less. And one more hint. As a starter, we are working only with little code, which is not really effective, but later when you start to work with big codes, I think then it will have a bigger impact, and you should try it with with bigger code than just for example a little while loop or something like that. But okay, with that, let's see my bugs which I made here, and we can identify this with flowcharts. And first of all, there is not a bug, there was a literal normal error which I made and have not corrected. What was this normal error? Not a bug, this is a just error, programming error. And the programming error was, I explained to you this little nice function here. Let me jump to this one. It is here, not this one, the other one here. So this is the function which I explained to you, and I said to you, hey, this whole code here we can put in a function. Like you can see, I put it in this function, and I showed you this one with the nice trick. We can go here to the quick actions, extract function, and then it's created automatically, or you just create your own function manually. Just write here the function, the body, and then paste the whole thing here in this code. And you can see we did this actually where we did it here. And the reason why we created here a function was because I wanted to show you this extract method and use a function. But normally, why we create functions, the reason why we create functions in programming is we want to reuse them or use them very easy, right? And that was the case why I created this one, because I wanted to use this function in another place as well. And the other place was actually here, and I have not used it. I have not updated it. So this was a normal error because this one is also, it's the swap. And here I have my old data, and here I just changed here the score data. And the point was, if I tested this one, I could not see it that this was an error, because I expected all works fine. So you have to be careful when you test your code. That is also a very special topic, testing your code properly. There are test units and all this kind of stuff. But for a starter, if you make errors like that, it's hard to see. And the problem with that was again, the compiler is not indicating an error, because the syntax here, it's not a problem. It is just a logical problem which I made with my thinking that I have to, yes, use the swap. So, but this one is very easy to solve. We have just to copy the function which I created on top here. And that's it. And now I want to talk about a real bug. And we try to identify this with a flowchart, and I use my bad flowchart, which is not the beautiful one. That was the first one which I created, where I skipped a lot and want to just fast analyze my code without thinking too much, and that's why it looks so bad. The better one I showed you in my last video, that looks a little bit better. And the point is, here I have here also the references, which means it's easy to find this condition. So for example, I have here P8, I would go and find P8 and check the conditions. You can see in this flowchart, which I made in some minutes, that is bad, not very nice, but it was enough to find a bug, and that's an interesting point. So this one I want to show you now. First of all, let's see how it starts. So here I examine not the whole code. I wanted only examine one special part, and this one special part which I wanted to examine was, let's delete first this one here, was this one swap. This one condition. I check what happens if the score data is greater than the other data. And I see, by the way, one more problem. Here I make a greater sign, here I make a less sign. Interesting error. We have another error, which I have not changed, but later. Let's concentrate us here now. Or let's change it now. And it's an error. It's also an error because they should be the same. That was ascending order, descending order. I talked about it and I have not changed it. But let's concentrate us on this function here. So here I modeled fast this little thing. Here I start. This one is the question. I have not referenced it. That is bad. This is normally this one here. And I should make this. Let's make it just for test purposes. Let's write here P1 for position 1. And here is P1, right? So, that looks also very bad, but whatever. It's P1. Now I know this one is P1. This is this condition here. Of course, I should write here a good comment because flowcharts, like I said, they are working more with comments than with the code because I'm not interested here reading the code. When I read the comment, I know what the code should do. So let's write here, for example, compare pointers and make just compare 2 pointers, not too long, because I want to just show you the bug here. So this is the position, and like I say, like you know, this is a decision because we have here a condition, and then if the condition is true, you can see true means here, 0 means here. Same goes for the other ones too. Then I would go to this one. So if it's true, you can see I enter the body here. If it's not true, I have here a else, which enter the other body here. Okay, then I enter the body here and I make a swap. You can see at first I skipped this part, later I added this part because this is this execution part which I need. This is just normal execution, and then I enter here the other if part. This is this if part here. Let's call this also a position so that we know what this one is. This is P2 to make it a little bit more clear where I reference it. And this P2 is interesting. The P2 says if it's true, and again, this is just format because I have here a long if statement with a or. That looks a little bit different, not like a one-liner like this one. Normally it looks all time one line, but if you have a very long names and very long conditions, I put it below. It's easier to read. You can see. Important is that you understand it. And after you see this condition, if this is true, I will do this one, which is just indicating with end position. This is just the end position, right? So if it's true, we found the end position, which means my loop here will go to our end position. And you can see I indicated this one here. I found our end position. We talked about this, right? And then if it's not true, and then I have here a else, but you can see this else here is actually not this else from here. This is the else here, which means I have to go to P1. Okay, the P1 is here, which means no swap. Okay, let's go to the no swap. And then there is again this if. This is now, let's call this if the P3 because we have already P2. Let's make this references at least that we know where we are. Okay, then I have my P3. This is this condition again. This one is again exactly checked end condition like here. This is exactly the same thing. Here end condition. If it's true, this is this block. I go here, I check the end condition, and I go to the endpoint because if this is true, the true block is this block here. P1, P2 is this block here, by the way. And then I have here another else, but this else comes from this one here. So, and this else says if if this was not swapping, also we have it's not less, so we make no swap. So that's why we have here no swap. That was here this special case no swap. Here I have swap, there is no swap. That's why here is no code block. Then I had here checking again for end position. If I found end position, I go to the end position. So if this is true, I go here to this end position. If it's not true, I set the pointers to the next place because it's not end position. That means, what means this? Oops. What means setting the pointers? Let me show you this in this diagram here. Let's say I compared this both pointers and they are swapping or they are not swapping, depends on the numbers here. But and in the end, I check for end position, and you can see here I'm not the end position because my end position pointer is here. So I want just move the pointers to the next position. So I move it here in the second one to this position, and that's it. So very easy to understand, and that was a code which I just modeled here, very ugly, not looks very bad, but it still works. So where is the problem? Do you saw a problem here? I hope you saw it. It's very hard to saw when I explain it this way, but actually the problem was here in the first part, and the reason here in this part with the swap, and the point was here this if check. That was this if check. I only explained you this true path, right? So if here is the condition, if this is true, then here. But I said when we create a flowchart, we have all time check all paths. So this path I never explained you. So normally this path here is in the air. So there is no explanation. But anyhow, I pretended to be that there is something. That's wrong. Normally, when you create a flowchart, every step must be clear. So this step was not clear. This was now. Let's make clear. Let's make it now clear. So what happens here? If it's true, yes, it is the end path. I see it. This is the end check position, end position. This is the end position. If it's true, I go there. It's good. That is this one here, the true state. But if it's false and this false, and probably I made this mistake because there was here this else, and I just go here anyhow, or not really careful, but this else is not this else of this one. So I need here the else state, and there is no else state means you just continue with the program, right? So else state means you are just continue with the program, but what I did here is, you can see I did not continue with the program. I did here pretend to set the pointers, and interesting is this block is right. You have to set the pointers here because this position says, let me go to the other graph, this position says you are swapping this one. You are reaching not the endpoint, so set the pointers to the next position. That's it. That's the reason. That's the reason why I have here in my graph setting the pointer to next. But in my code, I don't know what I did there. There is not this pointer setting to the next point. So this else part is missing. This one I need here as well. That's very important. So it is not this one. So you can make it with a else part, but you could write without a else part as well. You could just continue with the program. Like I said, if you don't want to make a else part, this one is also legit because you are just going in. It is true. It is checking. If it's not true, I continue with the program. This one here, it's continue here with the program. Is this right? If yeah. Yes, not really, but not really because you are continuing here with the program, and then I have to model it from the other path. This could be made complicated. I mean, this will work too anyhow, but the real thing is just make it with an else, because you're checking here really the end position, true, false. This other one will work too, but then you have it connected from the first part, which means swap, and then you go here and then anyhow connect this one. That's not so important right now. Important is now this was missing, but the interesting question comes now. And what is the interesting question now? This one was the error. Now I fix it. Now it's perfect. What is the bug here? The bug interest, and why I call it interesting bug. The interesting bug is because, let's comment this out, my whole code worked without this one. So this one was missing, and my whole code still worked perfect, even without error, and that's why I not realized it at this point. Because, again, the compiler is not complaining because syntax is right. Has nothing to do with syntax, and that's why we call it a bug. Even this is because I see here is an error, but the question is now, why is my code working still perfect with this error? And the answer is here, interesting. Depends on the code structure what I made here. And the point is, you can see I enter this code here with a comparison. Again, we have here P1. P1 goes here, enter the code. Then, again, I go here. If there is a comparison, let's say I enter the true state because there is my problem. I want to see this. So I go here to the true state, which is here. And, oops, could be that I showed there's something wrong. This is the true state. Okay, yes. Sorry, the true state of here. Here's the true state. Here I make my swap. This is this one here. And then I enter the P2, which is this one here. It's interesting, right? Here it's interesting, the false state. So here, where is that? Okay. Here I check the P2 state. Here I have my end state, and let's say it's not the end state. Let's say it's not the true state, because 1 at P2 means we reach the end state. We can read it here. End position true. Let's skip this. This would be here. I'm interested in this one. So if it's not true, so and my question is why it's working, right? I made it was less. It was swapping, but it is not finding this one. And when I continue now here, what happens is in my code that this data, let's collapse this, would go here, just go here back to this while loop, right? You can see after this code here, what I collapsed, it was more or less my last action in my while loop. The code would just go back to the while loop at start, and start, let's say it's more or less, it's after this one, I would go more or less here again. And the important part is I will go here again, I will come here again, I will come here again. And because here I made a swap at this point, let me show you this one. This one reacts to a swap. But this time, because I already swapped it, it will not react to the swap, it will go to the else part. And the else part has this else, which means in my else part, I will move the pointers to the next position, which means in my case was just a lucky case that it works. The reason why it works was the pointer, let me show you this here again. So the pointer is swapping. Normally they should try to reach here, move the pointers to this position after they swap this. But instead it goes back after swapping to the while loop. The while loop goes here. The while loop says, okay, it checks for swap, but it says, hey, I can't swap, which means I enter the else state. This is this else state. I can't stop. And this else state, oops, Control Z. And this else state say, okay, I check for end pointer. This one is not the end pointer. And then I set here to the next pointer. So with other words, my code created here one more extra iteration of the loop. That was the reason why it still worked, even if it's not correct. Can you see that? And that's why I said it's a strange bug, because when you watch the code, it is not correct. This part is missing. This part should be there. Without this part, let me show you what happens. Without this part, the code goes here, 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 because this part is not here, but it is entering this part. But it is going here without this part here. It is just going here, here, here. And then it starts here again. But interesting is, this one goes now here, here. And here, this time, let's see, P2. Let's see where it makes it. P1. Oops, sorry, that's not the power case. A little bit back. This time it goes here, here. The second time it goes here, and then here, and because there was no swap. And then it goes here, and then here, and here, and here. So, and that's why my code works. First, it goes this way, but I forgot the next here. Then it goes back. And then it's test again this swap. You can see it is testing here the swap here, but the swap says no, there is nothing to swap. And here it makes the regular checks again. Here the else, the regular checks, end pointer. No, it's not end pointer, which means it's false. And if it's false, you make here the else, which I forgot here. You can see here, this point I have, here I have it. And here I have it, here I have forgot it. And the reason why it worked was only the whole iteration check was one more iteration. So that's why it was a bug. But in this case, I call this a special bug because it caused not an error, it caused just one more iteration, which is not, which is unnecessary. But still, it's wrong, right? And that was a way to see how flowcharts can still help. And you can see my flowchart here looks so ugly. That was not really nice. But I want to just fast understand this little code without thinking too much. That was in some minutes which I made this one. But of course you should make this one a little bit better, at least like this one, to follow it a little bit more accurately. You can see here this important is like I said, in flowcharts are important. There's conditions that you write it here if it's possible. If not, you can make that what I made here with these references. And very important is you need flowcharts with good comments, because flowchart works more with comments than with code. And the reason for that is, like I said in my code here, you are not really reading here the code anymore. You are just want to know what this code is doing, why you are making this one. For example, here in my very ugly say, I say here, check here is just check end position pointer. I don't care about the code at this point. I know this code will check anyhow the end position pointer. And here at this point, it should just set the pointers to the next position. I don't care how it makes this in code, because I can read it if I'm interested in. And yeah, this is so a little bit a high level view, and in future you will also learn this high level views, because they helps a lot. High level view means very simple terms. You make all easy. Yes, you don't care about details, you just care about the general flow, and that makes your thinking so much easier and better. And yeah, and I hope you should try this on your own code to see if it helps you to understand it. And like I said at the beginning, at the starter we are working only with little codes where you normally see all conditions very fast. So we are working really with little codes where it's easy to follow without a flowchart, right? We don't need really a flowchart, because we make here very easy examples. But later when you start to work on a bigger project where, let's say, where you have more than 100,000 line of codes and all things come together, then every flowchart can help there to analyze it a little bit better, to see the steps what you're doing, and yeah, can help a lot in more complex things. So in more simple things as a starter it will help, let's say, not so much, and that's why many starters think it's not so important. But when it becomes more complex and more complex, then you will understand, yes, that helps me. My thinking goes faster. And important is this high level view, if you understand what I mean with high level view in future, which means just don't care about details. Just care about the general ideas, and if you want care about the details, you go one level below and then watch it there. It makes your thinking easy and fast. And with that said, I will stop here with the flowcharts and will talk in the next video about states in combination with flowcharts, because the real problem, I think, are the states. In my case, at least, not in general case, in my case, the reason for that is states. Careful, the theoretical states, what I said you should watch in Wikipedia, they are too theoretical. They are just mathematical abstractions. That's the problem. That is not that what we are interested in programming. In programming, we are more interested in finding the states, not defining how you can go from state to the next states, because that is what they do most time in theoretical programming with state machines. That's not the real problem. If you have a state, it is easy to go to the next state. I mean, it's easier to find to go to the next state anyhow. But the problem in programming, and that I will show you and talk in the next video, is to find the state which is possible, because that we care and that we need. If we have that, we can program it and go from there to the next part. But if we can't find it, and if we can consider it, but the program can go in this state, this will cause a bug. And yeah, we will talk about this a little bit in the next video. And if you understand then the states and the flowchart, I think that's the only thing what I'm talking here in this exercise. Then we continue with our code. And yeah, if you have any questions, any comments, like all time, write in the comment section. See you in the next video, and like all time, have fun, try it out, make it your own, and bye and good luck.